USD 350 Board of Education meeting to order. Welcome visitors. Any additions or changes to the agenda?
I have none.
Mr. President, I move the board approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the agenda as presented. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Consent agenda.
We do have two additional items outside of what's normal for this July meeting. One of those is the July 1 cash balance situation. You'll notice that the general fund has a huge negative balance. That's because the state pays one of our payments on our state aid for last budget year on July 9th. So on July 1st, we actually received that money in, but we don't have it. So it's just an accounting trick that gets the state through the budget year in the black, and then they pay money to the prior year. It's been going on for 12, 15 years, I think. So that's what that is. And then there's the consent agenda resolutions, these standard resolutions, establishing the school term, activity fund, just annual things we need to renew, nothing out of the ordinary. Substitute pay went up to $110 a day. We're struggling to find people. We need to stay competitive. I think our neighboring districts are doing the same thing. Everything else is pretty standard. If you have any questions on that, I recommend on that for approval.
Mr. President, I move that the board approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the consent agenda as presented. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Okay, patron comments. All right. Organization for the 21-22 school year.
The list of appointments is on page 28. Most of these are just standard to appoint staff members to positions. And then there's these highlighted ones here that you all need to determine who wants to serve in what capacity as far as board members. Rec Commission, Jordan Hickle's appointment was up this year. He would like to serve another term, so I'd recommend approving him for another term, a 4-year term on the Rec Commission. Nothing else is different.
All right, so we need to go through the list. All right, Goodman Scholarship Committee.
I'll volunteer.
Okay. St. John High School Local Scholarship Committee. I can do that one. Negotiations team.
I can do it again.
Me too.
Okay. The Special Ed Co-op. Okay. Okay. Thank you. Library Interlocal. Okay.
I'll do it again.
Okay.
Who was that, Vance and Carl?
Yeah.
Local Professional Development Council.
I'll do it, somebody don't want it.
Okay. Neighborhood Revitalization Plan.
I'll do that again.
Okay.
Unless someone wants it.
Government Relations Network Representative.
I'm good.
Okay. Cornwall Scholarship.
Not good.
Okay. Agreement for that one? Got them all? Awesome. Thank you. All right. We'll get a motion to approve.
Mr. President, I move that the board approve the list of appointments and designations as presented and discussed.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the list of appointments and designations as presented and discussed. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Bank designation.
In the appointments and designations list we just approved, that had SJ and Bank as our official depository. We do keep funds at American State Bank for the activity fund, and it's not really a board-controlled thing, but our foundation does have a checking account there as well, so we need to
They
designate
changed the
them.
name.
Which bank?
Didn't American State Bank change the name, aren't
I
they?
did not know
I
that.
don't think that's official till October.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
My understanding anyway.
I recommend approving both as depositories.
Mr. President, I move that the board designate American State Bank and SJN Bank of Kansas as depositories for the USD 350 funds.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we designate American State Bank and SJN Bank of Kansas as depositories for the USD 350 funds. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Board meeting dates.
Officially, we have our board meeting date. It's the second Monday of the month at 7 o'clock. Make some adjustments. We'd like to go earlier in the winter months. And then there's one date on May 9th that there's a concert that starts at 7. So in order to give people a chance to go to that, we move it later. Everything else is pretty much the same. The other option for that May date, here's our calendar. This is that concert on May 9th. Last day of school is the 17th. We could just push it back a week and go 7 o'clock. It's kind of up to you all.
Either way works for me.
Let's do the 9th.
I agree with that. Just
Okay,
keep it on the
just
line.
keep it on
the
Okay,
line.
a little later.
Okay, then I'd recommend the list as I've got it there.
Mr. President, I move that the board approve the regular board meeting schedule as presented.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the regular board meeting schedule as presented. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Okay, audit engagement letters.
We've got our engagement letters for the auditors, 2 of them. One is for consulting services, the other is for the actual audit. Since you all hire them to do that work on behalf of the district, we need approval of those engagement letters.
Any concerns? Still happy with them?
We are. They do very good work. It seems like each year we think, should we put it out to bid? Should we make a switch? The tough thing about that is you're going with somebody different, which sometimes fresh eyes is a good thing. But then all of that work of, they have our information from prior years, trying to go to somebody new. They need to collect that information. It becomes more work, and it is more of an expense in the first year. We are happy with them, and I hope you all are too. They do good work. And they understand school finance.
Mr. President, I move the board approve the audit engagement letters as presented.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the audit engagement letters as presented. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Okay, 2021-22 budget.
Elise has been hard at work the data entry side on our budget and getting things ready to go. Looking like closing out the year, always something that we look at. How did we do as far as revenue versus expenditures? This is an estimate, so nothing's official here, but it looks like ending cash balance from last year compared to this year. We look at our spendable funds, our operating funds that we used to pay the light bill and pay the teachers. How did we fare there? We're up a little bit. That's a good sign. Our capital outlay, this one's always tough to look at because it's kind of a timing issue with that July 1st. We do a lot of our big expenditures in the summer. So it's tough to tell, but things look good there. And then these are our funds that fluctuate that we can't use to to pay our operating expenses, so we don't pay much attention to that. But, so looking like, that federal COVID money did help get us through. So the spendable, the operational is kind of what we look at. So we're right around that 500,000 mark, which is comfortable. Could be a little higher, but we're in decent shape there. Something new for this year, we talked about it a little bit, but we've kind of learned a little more as we've gone on. This revenue neutral rate information. Let me just show you this information. I look at each year, and we'll publish this. We put this on our website. It's important to look at what are the tax dollars that we levy. How many tax dollars are we bringing in from our community? What's the tax burden on our patrons? Most people look at the mill levy. Are my taxes going up or are they going down? Well, if the value of your property goes up and your mill levy stays the same, you're still going to pay more in taxes. So it's important to look at both of those. Look at your mill levy and compared to the valuation and the tax dollars that we levy. So my best estimate for our budget at this point, we're pretty much done with the budget. Lisa's got some more work to do on it, but I think we're going to go to Topeka and have them review it. There may be some changes, so it may fluctuate a little bit. But our mill levy looks like it's going from 51.8 to 49.9. Again, that may fluctuate a little bit when it's all said and done. The tax dollars that we're levying, that we're bringing in, is actually going up a little bit. How does that work? Well, a big chunk of that is two things, are the oil valuation, and that was significantly down last year, now it's up, and the state assessed utilities, that's up. So if you have oil interest, your value of your land, your property went up, so you're going to pay more in taxes even though our mill levy went down. But your residential property, the mill levy is going down. If your value didn't go up a lot, you're going to pay a little bit less. So, and that's what you see here with our valuation versus the mill levy. When the valuation is up, the mill levy is down, and vice versa. So that's what we're looking at for our budget. We're collecting more in tax dollars, but our overall mill levy is lower. Why is that? Because the value of the property in the district went up. So that brings us to this new law, they're calling it the revenue neutral rate. So if we would levy, put a mill levy where the level of tax dollars is the same, so this 1.8 million, stayed at 1.8 million, that would be the rate that keeps revenue neutral. So if we want to exceed that, we need to add an additional publication, have an additional hearing, in addition to our budget publication, our budget hearing. This year, they are not notifying taxpayers. So by July 20th, we need to notify the county clerk that we intend to exceed this revenue neutral rate. They're giving a year leeway, but starting next year, the county clerk will mail a form to every individual taxpayer telling them that USD 350 intends to exceed the revenue neutral rate. 2 years, the legislature's paying for that. After that, they will assess us a fee to help cover that cost of notifying all the taxpayers that we're going to exceed the revenue neutral rate. Why are they doing this? Somebody cynical might say there's plenty of legislators that want to make schools look bad, so any chance we can have to let taxpayers know that schools are bad and they're raising your taxes even though they're not raising your taxes, let's do that. Somebody who's not that cynical might understand that there was a property tax lid on counties and cities. They wanted to lift that to let local people decide what they're going to do with their taxes, not the state legislature telling Stafford County how to run their tax situation. But to do that, they added this additional requirement to tell the taxpayers what we're doing with the tax dollars. So I think that's how it came about. Anytime we want to exceed that revenue neutral rate, we cannot have our budget hearing until August 20th. Typical year, we turn in the budget August 25th. So that deadline has been moved to September 20th. So as far as timing of this, we will notify the county clerk next week on Tuesday, and we intend to exceed the revenue neutral rate, if that's what we want to do. And then we can't have our budget hearing until August 20th.
So is that 1.8 always going to be that revenue neutral amount?
No, it depends
So-
on your valuation.
Okay,
Whatever happens, if your valuation goes up, you need to reduce your tax rate to be revenue neutral. If it goes down, you might not have to mess with this,
okay.
which is really the only time you would not have to mess with it, unless you just have too much money in your school district and you want to find ways to cut revenue. So we don't have to have a special meeting. This time frame really just pushes our budget hearing back to our September meeting. So timing wise, I don't think it's going to cause a problem. I hope it doesn't cause a lot of questions and concerns from patrons because it's confusing. I won't read you all this information, but the timing is important. We will need to approve a resolution that says we will exceed the revenue neutral rate. We're increasing your taxes, but we're cutting your taxes. That's where it's going to be difficult to describe what's happening. So when we publish our budget, this is what we're used to seeing, except with numbers. Then there will be an additional page here that shows the revenue neutral rate. So we will have to have a hearing for the revenue neutral rate to exceed that, a hearing for our budget. We'll do it at the same meeting. We'll have the revenue neutral rate hearing at the beginning of the meeting. We'll close that hearing. We'll have a budget hearing. And the same number of people will come and express their concerns about the budget, as I usually do.
The cynic in me wants to refer them right on to the representatives and senators who make that decision.
Well, I was gonna ask the question if Topeka left a phone number that our patrons could call
Yeah.
if they had questions.
So this is how we
I
get,
can publish local ones.
we get this form every year. This is our valuation that shows for real estate property. There's an exemption for the general fund for the first $20,000 of value in your home. So this is the form we get every year. This is new over here. That's our revenue neutral rate. And I'll try to be politically correct when I say this, but I want to show you how insanely stupid this is. So this is our budget for this year. I sent some of this in a Friday note, but I'm not sure I had a good explanation of that. Here's the tax dollars that we levied. Keep in mind these dollar amounts are close, not exact. This is our valuation. This is the mills that we assess to collect those tax dollars. This is what I estimated our budget to be, and it's pretty spot on after we've gone through everything. That's really where we're at. So the dollars that we levy have gone up. And again, I'm just estimating, so if you see something different here than what you saw in the last spreadsheet, it's just an estimate here. So our mill levy went down 1.8 mills. Typical year, that's just the way it is. But here's our revenue neutral rate that we saw from the county that says we have to, if we want to exceed that rate, then we have to stick with that. So the dollars levied would be equal next year as they are this year. Again, it's close, it's not exact. Our mill levy would go down to 48 mills to collect the same number of tax dollars from 51.7. Why is that? Because our valuation went up. in order to comply with that, we must levy 20 mills. State law says we have to levy 20 mills. So if we want to stay revenue neutral, we cannot do that in the general fund. We will always exceed the revenue neutral rate of the general fund unless our valuation drops, which it does from time to time. So in order to do that, if we wanted to stick with the revenue neutral rate, we're going to have to reduce our capital outlay mill levy by 50 to 60,000 in order to comply with that to stay revenue neutral. From year to year, it fluctuates. It's up and down. Those graphs I just showed you. One year, collect more tax dollars, or next year we collect fewer. So, to me, this revenue neutral rate is ridiculous and has no bearing on what we do. Our budget's the same as it always is. We're gonna communicate to people. Look at the tax dollars levied, look at the mill levy, look at all of it. If we have an issue, let's talk about it. So I think it's just going to generate probably some confusion where there doesn't need to be. But for our work here, we've got plenty of time to work through the budget. But we do have to notify them the county by Tuesday of what our intentions are with the mill rate. And this is the form we'll send to them. So actual taxes levied, the form is just awful anyway, but they look at general and capital outlay, and then they look at everything else together, but we just have the LOB there. So if you compare our general fund, a revenue neutral rate, which we can't levy, we have to do 20 mills, it's going to be 20 mills. Capital outlay will be 8 mills, and our LOB will go down a little bit to 21.9. That'll be my recommendation for the budget. If you all are comfortable with that, after we go to Topeka, have them review our budget, it might be off by a little bit. If you're comfortable with that, at 49.9 mils, it could be a half mil higher or lower after we visit. If you're comfortable with, let's go with what we've done in the past. We'll do the publication and tell them we're exceeding the revenue neutral rate. We'll do all that. We'll send the information to the county clerk on Tuesday, wherever it lands. If it's significantly different than that after we visit with the people at KSD, I'll be sure and communicate with you all before we submit it into the county.
Have you ever had any big changes come out of meeting with them in Topeka?
A little bit. Nothing more than a couple of tenths on the mill levy maybe. I feel pretty confident with where we are, and we may find some things in the next couple of days that we'll communicate with you about it.
I'm good.
And then we should not have to have a special meeting. We publish the budget. We'll have our August meeting, we'll know what the budget is. So if we send this information to the county, we say this is what our mill levy is going to be, when it comes time to publish the budget and approve the budget, we can lower that if we want to. So we might err on the side of a little high when we submit to the county just to make sure. We can always drop it down. We can't go higher. That's our maximum. Whatever we submit to the county on Tuesday.
Thank you. Board policy updates.
You do have a separate document that has those policy updates. There's nothing crazy here. The only thing I will say, I just presented these as they were sent to us. The food service management, they're giving, adding something in there to where if we would, lots of school districts, they've learned how to do remote learning, and if they have a snow day, then kids are going to learn at home. I have no intention of doing that. So I would not recommend that part of the policy. I have no intention to do remote learning when we have our 2 snow days a year. It's just not worth messing with. So the rest of this is pretty boring policy stuff. It's just corrections according to federal law, Title IX and stuff, sexual harassment. Lawyers doing their thing, so we'll bring those back for final approval. If you have concerns about that over the next month, let me know.
Okay. Thank you. School operations plan.
We talked about how to do school during this COVID thing. And we set in place that operations plan with the masks and the gating criteria and all that mess. We adjusted as we went along a couple of times during the year. There's nothing in that plan that said it ends on a certain date. So technically, I guess it's still board policy, so we really need to take action to do away with that. Over the next month, if we determine we need to do something to address what's going on with the virus at that time, we'll get together and we'll figure it out. For now, I think our plan is to start as normal, do everything as we normally do. I did include on page 46 and 47, safe return to in-person instruction, which is kind of silly that we had to come up with this plan because we've been in person the entire year, but part of that, accepting the coronavirus relief funds from the federal government, we had to have a plan. I don't know if our other plan counted or what, but anyway. We had to post this on a website, basically just said, I'm not going to read it to you, but just saying we intend to start as normal and adjust if we have to. So, if we're comfortable with that, I'd recommend that the board repeal the school operations plan.
Mr. President, I move the board approve the repeal of the school operations plan. Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the repeal of the school operations plan. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Contingency reserve fund.
We have our natural gas situation. They're telling us that the attorneys are close to an agreement. We paid what we believed, according to our legal counsel, that what was the statutorily maximum rate for the gas during that cold snap. We paid that amount. That protects us from any late fees. We're disputing that amount. But we still owe, technically, a little over $13,000 on that bill. That's what they're working on. We've been told that within a couple of weeks we should have agreement, and they want payment within 5 days, 5 to 10 days. So we'll need to move pretty quickly on that. But finishing out the budget year, we need to encumber those funds. The problem is if we do that in the general fund, if we encumber the entire $13,000, and then here in July or August, they say, well, you only owe $3,000, well, then we have a $10,000 encumbrance that we would have to cancel. And that means we would underspend our general fund by $10,000. The state recoups any of that we don't spend. That's a problem. So we don't want to encumber that out of the general fund. Same thing is true with LOB. They don't recoup the whole amount, but a portion of it because we get some state aid for LOB. The safest bet is just do this out of contingency reserve. If we cancel part of it or all of the encumbrance, it doesn't matter. It's our money. It doesn't mean anything. And then if we have to pay it, we just pay it and we move on and cancel the remaining part of the encumbrance. But to spend any money out of contingency reserve, this board has to approve that. I talked with our accountant. He said that's what we should do. So two things. I recommend that we take action to approve that amount It's been from the contingency reserve fund in last year's budget. And then if you guys are comfortable with whatever that amount is that we're instructed to pay by our attorneys, we go ahead and pay it before I don't want to have a special meeting to approve that payment. If the consensus is we pay up to that amount, we'll just pay it and move on with life. Everybody comfortable with that? Okay.
Mr. President, I move the board approve the expenditure of $13,017.10 from the contingency reserve fund for the February natural gas bill in the 2021 budget year.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the expenditure of $13,017.10 from the contingency reserve fund for the February natural gas bill in the 2020 through 21 budget year. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
Now say it again.
Yeah, I was waiting for you to do a so moved or something. All right.
I was tempted.
Okay, communications. Carl?
I don't know.
The last special ed board meeting, we discussed assessments. And we, as a board, told them we don't want to go any higher than a 6% raise in our assessment. And the superintendent, that was the superintendent's recommendation. There's just, I'm not good with numbers, so, you know, I don't know how to explain the assessment. Maybe Josh can do that part, but the other big thing that we talked about is that this past year we've had 3 assistant directors. One of them resigned and they weren't able to fill Amber's position, so that the director and the 2 assistant directors will be taking over those responsibilities for this year. Pretty much the rest of the positions have been filled. And they were, and we have approved the assessment increase so that they could work on negotiations, because that hasn't been done yet for the co-op. You want to explain?
Assessments is based on enrollment, our percentage of enrollment of the co-op, so that can fluctuate depending on the year. It's really the dollars they need to operate. We keep seeing increases because state funding is not keeping up with inflation on the special ed side.
They're anticipating that instead of the 95%, which is what the law says that the state should be providing for special ed funds, this year it might be 72%. So that's why we have to work with them to make up the funds. The state's just not following through with their side of the special ed. And yes, I have talked to 2 representatives about that.
Got nowhere?
Huh? And got nowhere.
All right. Thank you. Karen?
Nothing.
Sean?
Nope.
Okay, nothing for me. Administrator?
Really don't have a lot.
Oh. Did we approve the library budget?
I will do it next month.
Okay.
The greenhouse, we've got most of the equipment, none of the actual greenhouse yet. I haven't touched base with Mansell's lately to see where they're at on their schedule, but they were planning on early August before they could even get in here, so. Working on scheduling all the professional development for the year. Summer maintenance is rolling along. We got vacations out of the way, I think, so we're back to full staff. Working on getting the newsletter out, and our calendar is pretty much done. We're going to get that to the printer. Get a newsletter done here in the next week or so, get information out about enrollment and all that. We're doing that online enrollment again this year. And still working on our ESSER plan for that funding for the the federal funds, but we've just been working on those things in the office, and things stay pretty busy in the office. Driver's ed, Mr. Smith was able to get the driver's ed class done. Now he's working on driving. So we have about twice as many kids we normally would. Since we didn't have it last year, we had much more. So I think 31 is what we have. And we're going to complete it, I think. We'll see.
That's all right.
We finish up the driving. Yeah. So watch out.
When are you scheduled?
All right, thank you. Executive session.
It's never enough. 15 minutes, I guess.
How many?
I said 15, so I was going to say 10.
Just say 20.
Mr. President, I move that the board go into executive session to discuss specific individuals being hired or resigning and the performance of specific employees pursuant to the non-elected personnel exception under KOMA, with Mr. Meyer to be included, and that we return to open session at 7:56 in this room.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that the board go into executive session to discuss specific individuals being hired or resigning in the performance of specific employees pursuant to the non-elected personnel exception under KOMA, with Mr. Meyer to be included, and we return to open session at 7:56 in this room. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
We will have some action.
Moving back to order. All right, resignations and contracts.
Okay, I would recommend approving the board clerk contract as presented here. So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the board clerk contract as presented. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
I have a recommendation to hire Warren Nixon as the technology director at $20 an hour.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to hire Warren Nixon at $20 an hour. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
I would recommend hiring Ixchel Nixon as the Spanish language aide at $15 an hour.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we hire Ixchel Nixon. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
Future agenda items, we have our library budget, our special ed assessments. We'll do the budget hearing and approve that. Again, that'll be in our September meeting. And then our, it does not have to be a special meeting for that, early in the year for that. We still have that strategic planning discussion going on, and finalize our board policy updates.
Okay, thank you.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.